Howdy. Today is July 29th-ish, maybe? I gotta friggin' check. What is today? July 30th. And I am, well, this place is a place called Trunk River, if you know it. That's Martha's Vineyard right there. And that's Nobska Point, where we scattered my mother's ashes. And this is Falmouth, Massachusetts, the bike path. Used to be a railroad. Came down from Boston. So I left my sister in Pacifica, or San Francisco, last Saturday, and maintained radio silence all the way across the country to try to expedite my arrival, given the fact that it took me nearly a month to get here. After my last infusion on the 30th of June, I tried to leave LA a couple of times, and each time the heat caused considerable problems for the automobile, which is right there, looking magnificent. It made it without any trouble. The weather of past month has been very challenging for going across country, at least from Southern California, because to head straight east from there meant attempting to drive through this heat dome, and van broke down twice. Two very hard to find parts that I had to go back to LA for, and then I kind of learned my lesson and decided to try to go up north first before trying to cut across. When I get to San Francisco, though, they were talking about this heat dome settling in across the center of America, so I had to kind of seize the window of opportunity and head out before it got going, because I figured out that a couple things about the van, and one of them is that it really doesn't like going uphill when it's hot. You know, I'm actually not used to having to deal with it, because I've only had Volkswagens before, and Volkswagens are air cooled, so they don't really overheat. And but you get this baby going uphill in hot weather, and you really have to watch the temperature gauge for the overheating. You know, even if you have to stop. Here's the thing: you may have to stop, but it's best not to shut off the car. The car will cool down faster if you leave it running. It's a diesel engine, crazy. So I mean, I've probably spent about $150 in coolant in the past month, through all the two coolant parts, the auxiliary water pump, another really hard to find piece in the coolant system, little piece of hose. Had to go all over. I mean, crazy. And then get it all fixed, and the side window broke. I don't know if if I hit it or if something hit it from the outside or whatever, but that window, they don't make it anymore. And I found, after spending a couple of days, going to places and calling places and checking places online and everything like that, they haven't made this part in a while, and this window. So I had to MacGyver. So I took I got a piece of darkened plexiglass and cut it and put it in, and it's kind of thin, but it was the only thing they had. So I doubled up the panes, and now when I'm going at speed, it kind of pops away because it's not curved. It pops away and leaves an opening, and but it's better than shattered glass and cardboard and duct tape. And I just often, through these little challenges, I give thanks to my parents' legacy. One of the things they gave me was this MacGyver gene from both sides, and I'll often find myself, doing some kind of crazy MacGyver scheme, and I think about both of them. My mother, who I like to brag, could fix a television with kitchen utensils, and did so many friggin' times. And my dad, who let me brag about my father some more, in case you haven't heard about my dad. He after his tour in Vietnam, he was up for the job of the crew chief on Air Force One. And his hobby was ham radio. So I am the son of K1UQH. And if you know anything about ham radio, I've talked about this several times, and because it always comes up. I don't know. I just feel like blessed, shall we say? My dad noticed that K1UQH is five characters. That means he was one of the first, 10,000 license holders. And now there's ham radio handles our call signs are, I think there's 2 more digits to them, so there's over 100,000 of those licenses worldwide now. And he was once involved in the early 60s. He was involved, late 50s, in this project to bounce radio waves off the moon. And we had a 75-foot tower in the backyard, and it went 10 feet into the ground, and I dug the hole. Yeah. So MacGyver. So I've got some news. I had my a consultation with my oncologist last week, just before I left California, on the phone, and it's official. I have that the last infusion I had on June 30th, a double infusion, double dose, is my last infusion. I committed to 6 of them. The first one was March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. They were 3 weeks apart. This last one, the double dose, covers you for 6 weeks, and so I'm still going through the initiation of it. I talk about how each of these infusions has been like its own initiation, because you get the infusion, you feel somewhat okay for like a day and a half, and then the side effects come on and it gets more intense for like the next week and a half, and then you start to feel clearer, and it clearing just in time for the next infusion, and you learn whatever the lessons are during that period, that 3-week period, and then just when you think you've got it, that's when you get another one, and then you go through the whole thing again. Well, this latest infusion is being the double dose. It's kind of messed that up, and I'm gonna just straight up, I was working at this last night pretty late. I stayed up till 4 or 5 in the morning, watching the storm, being in the storm, sitting in the rain, in the wind at Nobska Point, spending time with the spirit of my ancestors. It's where we scatter my mother's ashes, and it's like pretty good. And it's where it's obviously, I see it as kind of, what came to me last night is it's kind of like a gift my mother's given me as somewhat of a cosmic anchor, that point where the lighthouse is. And let's look at that. I don't know if you can make it out, but on the other side of that house is a lighthouse, Nobska Light, and that's where the Falmouth Road Race iconically is run, on the coast road there, and so there's loads of photographs of tens of thousands of people pouring over that hill during the Falmouth Road Race. And that's Martha's Vineyard on the other side. It's 4 miles away, and I've had a vision. I have a vision I'm fulfilling of someday flying across that 4 miles in a powered paramotor, powered paraglider. So that's my mental bubblegum, and I'm actually running a little. I'm on course and on schedule for doing that. Hopefully next summer.
No, let's go further.
I'm slated. I'm planning to learn to do my P3 and P4 paragliding 3 and 4 certifications in the fall, and then in the winter doing the course in powered paramotors, flying powered paramotors. So by this time next summer, I'll at least know how to do it, and yeah, kind of looking forward to it. You think? I figured out that I would have to circle up to about 2,600 feet to be able to glide across to the vineyard, because the wing glide ratio is 200 feet a minute, or at least mine is. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to. It came to me when I was sitting here last summer. And that was before I started paragliding training in the fall. And I'm just really, I feel really, really blessed again, just blessed again by my daydreams, and being able to live the dream, live my daydreams. And apparently I'm living other people's daydreams too, because what I get is often I meet people that are like, you live out of a Dodge Sprinter van? I want to, and you travel around? I want to do that. Yeah, that's my life. That's what I'm doing. That is so cool. So what I was saying is, it's official. I would normally be scheduled for the next infusion sometime. I think the 8th or something was what they were talking about. So next week after. But we're not going to do any more infusions of this right now. We're not going to do any more infusions, period, unless it's absolutely friggin' necessary. According to all the tests we've done, the PET scan and CT scan confirmed what the study that I'm a part of revealed. After every or at every infusion, they take a special blood draw and check the presence of genetic markers of the cancer cells that they did a biopsy about a month before I started the treatment, and they saved that tissue and they sequenced the DNA of the cancer cells, and so they can check. They can find those genetic markers for those cancer cells in my blood, and according to the tests that we've done, the cancer was gone after the first infusion by April 7th. So, in the abundance of caution, we continued the infusions through the next. Through the first 6 that we scheduled, and even though the FDA recommends or approved a 2-year dosage period for this drug, we're not doing that. We're, it's possible the cancer could come back at any time, whether I go through the 2 years of this treatment or not. And if I went through the 2 years, completed the 2 years of treatment, and then it came back, it's like I basically, suffered for 2 years with the effects of this drug, and it didn't have, it didn't keep it from coming back. Or I can not do any more treatments, and then I've got the option, if it does come back, of using this same drug again to fight it off. what the drug, in case you didn't know, what the drug the immunotherapy drug that I've been getting 200 milligrams of infusion with from for the past couple of months has been, what it does is it inhibits the cancer cells from secreting this substance that makes the cancer cells invisible to my immune system. And the drug inhibiting that, suddenly, apparently, my immune system can just go in there and do its job and start killing cancer cells. And very effectively, it has. Aside from, not wanting to go through all the, the side effects for the next 2 years, another main reason is I don't want my system to have to deal with this, or become so reliant and dependent on this drug that it can't do, that it's weakened in any other way once we have to eventually stop. So this way we still have it as an option, as along with the same treatments that I had last year. We still have radiation as an option. We still have the cisplatin chemotherapy as an option, and I feel so blessed that I didn't have to go through all of that again. Unfortunately, I gained all this weight. I actually consciously put on about 25 pounds in anticipation of losing it during the cisplatin and radiation options. But and then this immunotherapy drug was offered, and I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I ended up not losing any weight at all. And so I have this extra 25 pounds that I'm not used to carrying around, and I haven't been able to do much about taking it off, because you don't want to do the things that you would need to do to lose the weight while you're going through this. You don't want any drastic weight losses that you can't avoid going through this stuff. So I've just kind of left it. But I actually just started running yesterday, and as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go run through the town forest a little bit, taking it easy, not even doing the whole, not overdoing it, hopefully, because my muscles and joints are, one of the side effects of this thing has been, of the treatment has been this arthritic symptoms, and so my muscles and joints, tendons and ligaments and all that kind of stuff, they're very sensitive, sore, and they haven't been as stretched as I'm used to them being stretched out. And the upside of that is that a lot of the damage that I did when I was training last fall to my knees and joints and stuff has had plenty of time to heal, and so it got to the point where running more than a quarter mile was just excruciatingly painful. But now, I ran that and more yesterday, and it hurt at the beginning, but that's arthritis type stuff. But it's counterintuitive that you have to use it or lose it. The more you use it, the less it hurts. Which isn't to say that you shouldn't rest up, but you definitely have to rest up a lot. But periodically getting up and moving around, doing stretching and yoga and being very physical, as physical as you can be without overdoing it is I'm not used to being this gingerly about working out and stuff, but this body is a resource I want to enjoy. I look forward to enjoying it fully functioning, especially in the months ahead as I get back into paragliding, and get strong enough to be able to kite in a strong wind and leap off of things with reckless abandon. So, emphasis on the abandon. Seagull. So, because I had planned to leave California a month ago and go to the Rainbow Gathering and didn't make it and all that kind of stuff, there was part of me, and then I was planning to come here, there was a part of me that was just really feeling out of place and out of sorts this whole month. And instead of stopping to see everybody on the way and doing stuff on the way, I just felt like the best thing for me to do would be just to put the pedal to the metal and hot foot it to the Cape and work my way back across country, stopping and seeing people and doing some of the projects that I have planned for this trip, and which I will talk about. And sure enough, as soon as I got here, and especially last night, I spent last night up at the lighthouse, just sitting in the rain and writing. And I had, I'm in the midst of a shamanic transformation. That's the other big news. I recognized, came to me clear as day. This is a really pivotal moment. I've got another week or so of the effects of this cancer drug, and then I officially begin my recovery from this cancer drug. And the past 2 years of this experience, it's 2.5 years of Mars cycle, and I recognize that. Hey, brother. That I'm in the midst of this shamanic transformation, and I've always, until this happened, until the cancer, I thought that I tried to live my life to inspire people, for those that might follow after. And I know that may sound whatever it sounds like, but that's how I grew up, was to try to be the best version of myself and try to be a person of integrity and a person of honor and trust and truth and competence, to be the best version of myself that I could ever possibly be, and in hopes that would somehow make a difference in the world and for the better. So I lived my life in case so that I could say to somebody, well, this is what I did, and maybe you should do that or whatever, But the cancer kind of changes that narrative, because it's not something I can recommend or would ever wish for somebody else to go through. And everybody that's faced with these things has to do it in their own way, their own time, and their own methodology, they have to make their own choices about how to deal with it. And there's no set path. You know, there's no path other than what comes from within you, you know? And so how did I, it's like that math problem, like you have to show your work. Well, I can't show my work because the work is in the void, right? The real work is in our relationship to the void. And once we've propelled ourselves into the unknown, you know, the uncharted, you know, for some of us, we try to leave markers for those that come after, but I don't expect anybody to walk in my shoes after what I've been through and am going through, what I have to go through ahead of me. Nobody's gonna walk behind me. So I'm the only one in the history of the universe that's gonna go this path this way. And everybody else that's been through cancer knows that, what that's about, you know. People can only share so much with you, and the rest is all you, babe, you know. So that's Falmouth Heights right there. Yeah. So shamanic transformation. When you're in the void, when you find yourself in the void, it's because it's for you to, it's time for you to come awake. And there's no holding back. There's no saving for later. There's no next time. It's you only make this passage once. We live in a country, in America, of over 325 million people. And up until about a couple hundred years ago, in every population of humanity since the dawn of mankind, humankind, in every population there is scattered an appropriate number of people who go through shamanic journeys. And the main goal, job, or whatever of a shaman has always been to help their community remain in balance, remain in cosmic balance. That means remaining in cosmic balance with the earth and with the cosmos, with the metaphysical realms, with all the extra dimensions, the parallel dimensions of the universe, of the creation. And the way that they do that is by going through a process of awakening their awareness to all of these parallel realities, and their place of origin, our place of origin, and our ultimate destination. We get there by facing death, facing and realizing our own mortality and immortality, realizing our immortal nature. The only way to realize your immortal nature is to realize and confront the illusion of your mortality and the reality of your mortality. Only what is infinite is real. If it isn't infinite, it isn't real. Only what endures of us and of everything is what is infinite within us. And what is infinite within us is love. The love and connections that we we share and we feel with everybody, with everything. That's all that's infinite. That's all we can ever take with us. And the shaman is really clear about that with themselves, and does whatever they can to help those around them to remain in balance with that truth, with that absolute truth, with the absolute truth of the creation. And it feels to me like that's the purpose of the shamanic journey. Every person that has ever existed in this life, ever existed on earth, has been experiencing their own shamanic journey, whether they're conscious of it or not. And as I said, in a population of over 325 million people in the United States of America, there is not one officially recognized shaman, which is kind of interesting. It may have something to do with why there are so many crazy people, quote unquote, in institutions in this country. And crazy people wandering around the streets that we think should be in institutions, that haven't quite finished their transformation, their transformative journey, and to where the circle becomes a spiral, and you return to a place of awareness where you can actually be of service with the awakening of your spiritual tools that you chose to bring into this life, this time. There was a South American shaman who was brought, who was touring the States, and he was brought to a mental institution as an observer. And what he observed is, they asked him, like, what do you think after he went through? He said, in our culture, when somebody starts to exhibit the what you would call symptoms that most of these people here are showing, we would call that a cause for celebration. There'd be great celebration, because we would recognize that there is a shaman being born. And as a person who's in the midst of this transformation, it's so obvious, everything's kind of been pointing in this direction, that it is one of the first things that happens, one of the main signposts of a shamanic transformation is the facing of death. the facing of one's own death. And I think I can check that box. I think I got that box covered. You know what I'm saying? A couple times over, actually. And everyone that has time to contemplate their death, at some point becomes aware of what life is and what it isn't, what's important and what isn't important. You know? And for my part, I recognize that I have a magnificent opportunity in whatever time I have left to do whatever I can to share what I've been given to understand by the universe. And that's why I've written all the books and painted all the paintings and made the movies and made the music. And I mean, that's what it's all been about, is trying to leave something for people of value, of spiritual value, to leave spiritual wealth on this planet for those who come after. And I get that it doesn't matter how I got there. To somebody looking for an answer and finding it in some of my work, a suggestion, a clue, a grip, a hint through some of my work for their own answers, for their own journey. I mean, that it doesn't get any better than that. I've been so blessed to have situations where people have said to me, there's something that you said or something that you did or something that you created that had a profound effect on my life. It changed my life. It moved me, and that change moved me in a direction that I obviously needed to go. And I had a wonderful experience the other day. I was driving on 80 East through Nebraska, and there was a spot where there's construction, so they've moved all the traffic onto one. I think they'd moved it onto the westbound. What would normally be the westbound lane of the interstate. They moved both, and because they were working on the eastbound. And right in the vicinity of within sight of the part where they moved the traffic back over to the eastbound traffic back over to eastbound lane, I noticed these two folks. This car broken down, and this guy was out in front with a piece of cardboard, and I couldn't see I couldn't make out what it was, what his cardboard was saying, but I knew they were in trouble. And so I went to the next exit and turned around and went back. And they were in a really bad spot to be broken down, and it turned out they had a flat tire. The driver's front side tire was mangled, and they needed a tire. They needed to get the friggin' tire off, and the tire iron they had was for another car. And I didn't have their tire iron, so I helped them. We went 4 miles away. There was that exit that I turned around on. There was a couple of truck stops. We went over there and they didn't have they couldn't help. And they recommended there was a tool place on the other side of the road, on the other side of the highway. And I went over there. It's mostly like farm instruments and farm equipment. And we were able to make a long story short. I was able to get them to loan us the tools to get the tire off. I'm leaving out a whole lot of stuff that happened, but we had to make a couple of trips there. And in the process, a state trooper came right as we needed to work on the tire, and he was able to, turn on his lights and block and make sure people knew we were there. There were people working in the road, and so the four of us worked like crazy for about an hour to try to get these friggin' lug nuts off. One of them was stripped, and it was just, it's problematic. It's one of those things that should have been really easy, but luckily the folks loaned, the tool place people loaned us actually a portable pneumatic drill, and we were able to fashion that to finally get the dang lug nuts off and get the tire changed and get the pressure up, and along the way, when I had taken one of the brothers, they were from Ukraine. He was from Kiev, and I have my good friend Baji, who's from Kiev. Oh, excuse me, Odessa. He's from Odessa, and Baji's his father is from Odessa, and he said to me, I'm gonna from now on, I'm gonna get a toolbox. I'm gonna have it in my car and help people on the side of the road. I said, and we were talking as we're driving, trying to get this part, and it's like, because we went to a couple of places and people, they wouldn't let us use, they had the tools and they wouldn't let us use the tools because they were afraid we were going to drive off with their tools or whatever, because it was their personal tools, as opposed to, provided by some corporation or whatever. They were that mechanic's personal tools, and they didn't want to, they wouldn't take a phone, us leaving a phone with them and everything like that. He was just, nope, it's all right, and then we go to this other place, and this guy is just like, okay, let's go get what you need, and there was such a contrast between the two approaches to life. One is very closed and very, I'm only going to give as much as I'm supposed to give, and I'm only going to be open as much as I have to be, and the other is recognizes, life is our connections, the quality of our connections with one another. Period. That's all we take away from it all is the goodness. The goodness is all that lasts. The what do you call it? Hey, the bad stuff, the yucky stuff, the stuff that is yuck. Eventually, we have to let that shit go. You don't have to let go the good stuff. Oh no, you can't remember the good memories. You can't remember how good it felt to hug somebody. No, you can remember that anytime you want. But where somebody shorted you or somebody was mean to you or whatever, but remembering that stuff is not going to help us. Holding on to that is going to do the exact opposite of help, right? And it was a really wonderful moment. We're driving back to their broke down spot to fix the tire with the tools. It was a really wonderful moment to, take stock and realize just how clear, a clear view of what makes life valuable, is how we treat one another, So, anyway, there'll be more I have to say about everything, of course, because that's my way. So one of the things that the reasons why I came back east, two things. One, something just kept telling me I just had to come to the Cape. I had to come here and take it from here, right? And sure enough, as soon as I got here, I felt like I caught up to myself, after trying to get here for a month, and I'm where I projected myself to be a month ago, finally. And I feel such a relief. It's like, now I can begin. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I don't feel like there's any place else I'm supposed to be, And I haven't felt that at all until I, tried to leave LA, and I wasn't able to. But like I said, I'm really glad that the van I feel that it's a lot more sound, and that we're both in sync more than we ever have. I kind of understand what it needs, and since I got over the mountains, the Rockies, I haven't had any challenges with regards to the coolant system, which is really wonderful. And I've been watching it like a hawk, watching the temp gauge like a hawk, and it's very copacetic all the way, 2/3 of the way across the country. So, and now I've caught up to myself. Now, one of the main reasons for making this journey, the second thing, was I'll talk about more deeply. It's about what I'm calling this meta node in Virginia, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I want to say that one of the reasons why I came to the Cape, I've been inspired to come to the Cape since last fall, was the possibility of paragliding here. And there were, when I first found out about it, I could go online and I could watch. There were videos posted of people flying down in Wellfleet, the National Seashore, and how you doing, man? And National Seashore, apparently, it's only, I just found out when I got here yesterday, the night before last, was that you can only fly there from October to April. So, and you have to be a P3 to fly without supervision. I'm a P2, so there's that. I would like to kite at least, and maybe there's some places in the dunes down by Provincetown that might be ideal for. I know it would be ideal for kiting, and I'm going to check that out. But I probably won't be able to fly, even if I was up for it, because at least not at where they're, where it's people have permission to do it. So there's that. All right, so the mega meta node. There's a place where there are two emperor dragon pairs that cross one another. In the only place in North America where this happens. And the emperor dragon pair that come across the country from Big Sur and Monterey to Kitty Hawk-ish area of the Outer Banks to Newport News, Virginia, is crossed in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I think, by an emperor dragon pair that comes down from it goes around the poles from the North Pole and South Pole, and like the meridians, and it crosses at this point in Virginia, like it creates 4 nodes, right? These two emperor dragon pairs that looks like a hashtag, a giant hashtag, and at each one of those crossing points there's a distinct, separate and distinct node. And the reason I'm calling it a meta node is because it came to me when I was out west at the Big Sur and Monterey nodes. I did my measurements there 2 weeks ago, and all of the ley lines on the planet, just to recap, they all are expanding. They all resonate at the same frequency around the solstices and the equinoxes for a period of days that we call the harmony period. That means that all the smaller subtle earth energy lines slow down to resonate, to vibrate at the same frequency as these emperor dragon lines. At present there are 6 pairs of emperor dragon lines around the world. 3 of those pairs just showed up since 2017, and they will. I don't know if there'll be more showing up, but the first pair that started to show up was this circumpolar pair that runs. That crosses the emperor dragon pair that comes across the country, which showed up, which was the last of the 3 to show up. It showed up in 2019. So because all of these ley lines are expanding at a pretty incredible rate, I measured the emperor dragons at both the Big Sur and Monterey nodes last winter solstice, December solstice, and they were approximately 180 paces wide. At this last summer solstice in June, I measured them, and they were in the vicinity of 400 paces wide. A month later, I measured the one at Monterey, and it was 475 paces wide, nearly 500 paces wide. So all of the ley lines are actually getting wider. And when the ley lines get wider, where they cross one another, the nodes that they create, when the wider the ley lines get, the larger the node becomes. The energetic structure that's created at the point, at the moment, during the periods of harmony, at the solstices and equinoxes. So if you can imagine, at those nodes, at those crossing points, there's these giant spheres of energy that are one is above the surface of the ground, and one is below the surface of the ground. They're matching, and the energy circulates like a donut, like a tube torus, 2 tube toruses, one sitting on top of the other, like 2 bagels, one sitting on top of the other. One is below the earth, one is above the earth, and the energy is circulating. And but within this giant sphere. And so the wider the ley lines are, the huger, the larger the spheres. And because these 4 ley lines on where the Emperor Dragon comes out of the ocean in Big Sur, it's approximately 50 miles between that point and where it comes out of the ocean at Monterey. It's approximately 50 miles. The distance between where those same Emperor Dragons enter the Atlantic Ocean, between Kitty Hawk and Newport News, is about 70 miles. So the hashtag where these 2 ley lines cross one another, these 2 Emperor Dragon pairs cross one another in Virginia, those 4 nodes in a hashtag form are getting bigger, and eventually they're gonna get so big that they cross one another in the middle of the hashtag. And it'll be interesting to see what the effect is when they get big enough to cross. And either way, I'm on my way there. Before I make it back to the West Coast, I'm going to stop in there and measure it all, dowse it all. That's kind of my mission. I'd also like to make it down to where the Emperor Dragons come out of the ocean on the East Coast, and maybe paraglide a little bit on the dunes and in the dunes. Hey there, how you doing? So that's what's up. Plan to see a couple of people in the interim. I don't have to be back to California officially until the 15th. I'm giving to give another blood draw and have a consultation with the oncologist, and generally check my blood to see if there's any more of those genetic markers for the cancer in my blood. And then I will probably be eligible for getting the vaccine. So it's kind of funny, everybody is in the country is all, their panties in a bunch about, getting vaccinated or not getting vaccinated. I will tell you, I have felt very, very self-conscious going across country wearing a mask when I stop to go into a building. But because, most places people have stopped wearing masks. And I almost felt like painting immunocompromised or compromised or cancer across the mask so that I wouldn't, incur weird looks, because COVID or no COVID, I'd still be friggin' wearing a mask. Whether people were vaccinated or not, I would still be wearing a mask. I've had, I'm very susceptible to very, very strange infections right now. I've had a couple that have been just like, what? One of them, it triggered the need for that emergency root canal and crown being put in. On the one hand, I heal in some ways, and if I get a cut, I heal really quickly. But rashes and irritations and weird pains and stuff, all that, a lot of it, I call them weird pains because suddenly I'll get a pain in the spot, and it's like, oh, it feels, like there's really something wrong, and then it'll be gone. Like one of the things you talked about with the oncologist. Every time I go to him, he asks me, one of the first questions he asked me is are your legs swollen? Any swelling in the legs? Any swelling in your feet? And I said no. And then for like almost 3 days, my left foot was swollen just for no apparent reason. Just suddenly my left foot swelled up, and I'm like, and I remembered that he would always ask me. He never told me why, and so when I talked to him, I'm like, okay, so why have you been asking me about my foot swelling up, about my feet swelling or my legs swelling, whatever? He says, because cancer patients often have blood. They end up with blood clots, and they call it thrombosis. And he said, but I don't think you have it, because I told him that it went away, and because he said it wouldn't just go away. You usually have to do stuff, take something or whatever, some kind of mitigation to get it to go away. And it was only one of your feet, and not both of them, and it's usually higher up on the legs. So got that working for me. At least that's not happening. But there's been all sorts of stuff, like my right arm. The past couple of days, my right arm, there's like a pain in there. But if I bounce my arm on my armrest, just bounce that spot, it's fine. The pain goes away. It's like, what is that shit? Whatever. So this video is meant as kind of a wellness check. I haven't been posting any of my daily posts. I haven't been social mediaing, and you knew it had to happen at some point where I would get to a place where I just had to let everything go, and that meant all schedules and whatnot, because it's the time in the, I guess you call it a blackout period, where you really go to the center of the work. The whole purpose of this journey is to bring me to this place of transformation, and part of that has to do with letting go of everything there is to let go of. Letting go of the past, any resentments, any ill feelings, any weird energetic structures that I may be carrying forward that might be debilitating to my journey. We've just been letting that shit go, and deconstructing, taking things apart, taking my life apart. It's one of the things I love about road tripping is the solitude and the silence of the road. You've got the wind out the window, the sound of the engine, and the sound in your head, the divine vibration. Other than that, it's just whatever else you bring to the party. One of the things that my sensei, Jasper, the amazing Jack Russell Terrier you may have seen me with, one of the things he showed me was that I was, how much I really needed to not be responsible right now to anything else or anybody else. Not try to take care of other people, and not that I could, because I don't have the energy for it. So this journey has all the struggles, all the cancer is only a vessel of the journey. It's a function of the journey. It's serving the journey, and the journey is a spiritual one. I'm so glad to finally be here. I keep thinking about how lucky I am, how fortunate I am. Because not the least of which because there have been so many people that care about what happens with me, and that's been expressed innumerable times and in innumerable ways. I got a text from one of my college friends, Greg Cantwell, the other day while I was in driving across country and driving through the Poconos, and he was talking about my last post, my last wellness check, where I was talking about fame and why I was exploring the concept of fame and why I've always wanted to be famous for my work. And just receiving that message from him was nourishment. It was spiritual nourishment. So Greg Cantwell, if you're watching this, thank you, bless you. And do you know anything about what's happened with Kevin Saba? Man, I would love to talk to you and find out what happened with Kevin and our other cohort. The four of us rode in an Audi. We drove an Audi from Boston, Massachusetts to Seattle, Washington in 2.5 days in, I think, late January of 1980, working on the Kennedy campaign. And Kevin Saba, Greg Cantwell, and I had been floor counselors at the same time. And I was the assistant head of residence. They were floor counselors when I became the assistant head of residence of my dorm at UMass Amherst back in the late 70s. And Tom Carter was our fourth. And we worked on the Kennedy campaign. They were working in New Hampshire when they brought me on board. We went cross country. Saba and Greg, I think, went up to, or maybe it was Tommy, and they went up to Alaska to work the campaign there. And I think Greg went up to Bellingham, Washington, and I was in Seattle working in the whole state office, and I went and helped Greg up in Bellingham for a little bit. And after that, we drove down the coast. After those primaries, we drove down the coast, and I left them in at I think a Burger King in Mission Viejo, California. And they continued on the campaign, and I spent 3 days sitting in sitting in a field that is probably underneath a parking lot of a strip mall in Mission Viejo now. But back then it was, there were construction signs up, but it was just an empty field. And I sat in that field reading Chuang Tzu, Genius of the Absurd. Chuang Tzu is a famous author of Taoist master, basically. And it was everything I needed at the time. I just sat there, I sat still, and read that book in that field for 3 days. And then I decided I wanted to find a beach I could run around naked on and have a conversation with the universe. So I started hitchhiking south, not caring if it was in the States or down in Mexico, down the Baja Peninsula, but I ended up hitching into Mexico, and 8 days later I had my conversation about 200 miles down the Baja Peninsula, and I fasted for 3 days. I fasted for 8 days, but I had no water for the first 3 days until somebody that picked me up asked me if I wanted a jug of a gallon of water. He had an extra, and so then I had water. But the material stuff wasn't important to me at the time. I wasn't stressing about the fact that I only had $3 in my pocket and I didn't have any food, and I was heading into Mexico, a place I'd never been before, down the Baja, and heading out into the desert. And I eventually found my spot, this beach out in the middle of nowhere and miles from other people, and I had my conversation with the universe. I had this most incredible experience where I stood in the ocean, where there were waves and waves breaking and breaking and breaking and breaking until they were down to just a little wave over your toes. And there was no moon. All the stars reflected on the ocean so that you couldn't tell where the sky began and the ocean ended. It was amazing. And I had my conversation over the next day and a half. And then I hitchhiked back to the States. And what had taken me all those days to get those 200 miles, I covered back. I got picked up by a purple Peterbilt truck. A Mexican trucker picked me up and drove me back to the border in 5 hours. And we stopped at a Mexican truck stop, which was basically this lady's living room, and had huevos rancheros for the first time in my life. And I don't really like eggs, but that was a great meal. And right after that was when I went to Torrey Pines for the first time, and I saw the people gliding, paragliding, hang gliding off of Torrey Pines. And I was like, I got to do this. I want to do this. And here we are. What was that? 40 years ago. It only took 40 years to fulfill that dream, baby, but boom. There's hope. It can happen. Right? I've been really thinking about how when last year, when I picked up the van in Chicago that I bought, that baby right there, the amazing Blue Mobile. I picked it up in Chicago. I had a month before I had to get it registered in California, and I drove around the country. And when I finally made it back, I get to the DMV in the town of Lake Isabella, California. I went there because I knew there wouldn't be a line. It's a DMV in a strip mall, and it's a small town, so they hardly get any business. And sure enough, there was no waiting. But anyway, in the process, the gentleman had to come out and get my VIN number, And as we're walking out to the van, when he saw the van, he was like, this is what I want to do. I'm saving my money to buy a van, a Sprinter, and I want to drive around the country. I said, well, I've been living your dream, bro. I said it laughingly, but then I realized, that I am literally living people's dreams. There's a sizable percentage of the population right now that wish they were doing what I'm doing, And that yesterday I was driving around, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about this brother. Years ago, back in 1983, summer of 1983, I rented a house on the water near Falmouth Harbor, and it's a big old mansion with 13 bedrooms. It's over 100-year-old summer mansion, some wealthy person. And the woman that was renting it, she was like, her great-grandparents, whatever, were super wealthy. She wasn't, she was actually a dowser as well. But anyway, I rented it, and I, got all sorts of people to fill the rooms and the garage, and we had 14 people living there, and I'm the one that kind of coordinated it. And one of the people that we had living there with us was this really wonderful person. Can't remember what his name was, but he was a father. He had a family, and he was here for a couple of weeks for the summer, working at one of the government institutions down in Woods Hole, like the fisheries of I think it was the USGS, the Geological Survey. And he had a wife and 2 kids, 2 girls, and he wasn't there to live in a party house. He was there to because it was a cheap place for him to do this assignment for the summer and get back to his family. And we got to talking, and he revealed to me that he had been a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. And I was all excited because I'd always wanted to fly helicopter. I wanted to fly anything, but helicopters, I sure as heck, yeah, hell yeah. And we all have that like video game mentality of what it's like to fly, combat helicopters and fly helicopters in combat. And he told me in detail what his experience was. And I was struck by the fact that, one, he learned how to fly helicopters only because he qualified for it, and because it would have taken. He was going to be he was drafted, and he was going to Vietnam anyway. Eventually anyway, and so the longer he could put that off, the better, and it was going to take him, with the training to learn how to fly helicopters, it was going to take longer for him to have to go, so he signed up for flying helicopters, So it was purely just to keep from going to Vietnam sooner for him, And then after he did his tour, flew thousands of hours in helicopters, he got out of the service, he never flew again. Never flew. He had no interest whatsoever in ever flying, And here was a person that was living my dream, of knowing how to fly, and he could care less, and that put me in mind of I'm sure there are loads of things that I take for granted that are other people's, like I wish they wish they could have done or were doing what I was doing or whatever, you know. And I think we're all living somebody else's dream in some way, you know. If done right, I guess, right? That's to be a smartass about it, I guess. So I recognize I'm living the dream, and I'm living other people's dreams. And I gotta tell you, it is sweet. One of the main things I love about it is how you doing, brother?
How are you?
Life is good.
Good.
It's good to be above ground. I say that because I'm reminded of this. I keep thinking about this woman that was I mentioned this before. You know, when I was at my last infusion, the woman that was in the infusion chair stationed next to me, she wouldn't look too good, and they were talking with her about hospice. And hi. And I at that moment I was thinking about what I was going to do when I got up out of that chair. I was going to go down to my van and I was going to start driving east. I was going to start driving cross country, you know. And I knew that I've been looking forward to the time when I had no more places that I had to be. I was free to roam, you know. I didn't have any more appointments. I didn't have any more needles in my future. Now I have two actually, not counting the second dose of the vaccine. Flat tire. Which brings me back around to I found, you know, that it's very strange to be the third category. There's the vaccinated, the unvaccinated, and the people that can't get vaccinated yet, you know. And I wouldn't have guessed that I would be in the third category. That even if I wanted to get vaccinated, I couldn't. It wouldn't really be healthy or good for me to be vaccinated, to get the vaccination until after the treatment had reached a point of where I was free to roam, you know, free to move about the cabin. So I don't know. I use it as a important benchmark, you know, important reminder. The memory of this woman is kind of symbolic of the people that I sat in waiting rooms with in all the oncology offices and all the radiation treatments, and you know, in the radiation treatment facility, you know, they have you scheduled. You come, you know, there's somebody walking through the door every 20 minutes or so, 15 or 20 minutes, because that's the treatment is 15 or 20 minutes of radiation, and so they have like a pipeline of people ready to go in various stages of getting ready to get treated, and then getting strapped in and treated, and then booted, and each one of those people has a different kind of cancer and has a different kind of concerns and a different, you know, support system, and, you know, a different way to get to the treatment center and a different way to leave, and, you know, but we're all, you know, facing our own personal hell and journey through hell, you know, journey through the unknown. and we suffer in silence. You know, it's like nobody. This is the wrong crowd to complain to. You know what I mean? Everybody's dealing with their own shit, and everybody's gonna have to overcome or die and overcome. You know, and that's something I don't want to forget. I feel it's important to remember that place of that at every moment there are those rooms where there's people waiting for a poison to save them. You know, waiting for something that, if they get too much of it, is going to kill them, save them from what will surely kill them if they don't get that thing, you know? And I know I'm not, unfortunately the statistics are, I found this out in my early days of this journey. The statistic is pretty astounding. In large part, what I've been going through, I'm not unique by any stretch, because there are 42% of men and 38% of women will have, or have had cancer. 42% of men and 38% of women in America. Obviously, that percentage changes in other countries, which, you know, not a whole lot of people are talking about why that is. And if it sounds high, and that it shouldn't be that high, there are other countries where it's not even close to that. So there's that. But I realized that everything that happens, you know, that we're sculpting this. You know, I've chosen this path, you know, spiritually. That whatever happens is part of the spiritual journey, and that life itself is a spiritual journey, and that means everything that happens counts. Everything that happens matters, you know. And I just want to, you know, get all the lessons and share whatever I can of what I learned from this, what there is to learn from it. I want to harvest it in the best way and share the fruit of it with the world as best I can, for however I can, and if for whatever it means, you know, whatever people can benefit from it. And that's what the shamanic journey is for, right? It is a harvest. And in that process, everything is shed. Everything returns to dust. Everything that we care about returns to dust. And what is left is meaning, or not. What is left is nothing, or not. You know? And it's up to us to say what the value is. So at least this is how I have to see it, in honor of who I am, whoever I am. So I could go on and on and on and on, and I probably will again soon. But I just wanted to fill people in, whoever cares, whoever it matters to. This is life in Trunk River today. Life at Trunk River. I gotta tell you, one of my most favorite things about life on Earth is summer on Cape Cod. Right in the middle of the summer. Right now. Here we are. You see how I'm bare-chested, bare-shouldered, where the air is so warm that you don't need a shirt. You don't feel discomfort at all. You feel like you're nourished, you're warmth, you're it's nothing but perfection, right? I love this. And when I was a kid, I decided that this is where I wanted to live, in this place, because 6 months from now, there could be snow covering this bench I'm sitting on, and it could be freezing and wind blowing sideways, and but you have this little window where it's perfect. It's perfectly comfortable, and this is where I'm from. This is where I grew up. This is where I chose to grow up as a spiritual being. And one of the things that I have been given to understand so last night I went up. I was up at the lighthouse, spending time contemplating life, the universe, and everything, and enjoying the connection that my mother gave me to that place, with enjoying it as an anchor to my presence on the planet, because she's there. I mean, her ashes are there, but when I was there, I realized that I was deep in my meditation. I'm sitting literally there's a bench there. It's named for somebody, and I'm literally sitting in the rain and feeling the cool wind on my face, and it just felt just what I needed, and I was, I had 2 coats on, and I was really warm and toasty and getting pelted by rain, and watching the lightning go overhead, and just deep in the medicine of the journey, and feeling like I have a lot to share. While I was sitting there, I started to feel a sense of vibration, and this is a thing that's been happening for about a month and a half now, and it's usually when I'm in a place that is very tellurically significant, in that I'm on a ley line, or I'm at a node, or and I'm sitting listening to the divine vibration, and I started to feel this vibration in my feet, and then it felt like underneath me, and then it was all around me, and then I realized that there was this tone, and it was getting louder, and And so I went deeper into the meditation and listening to the divine vibration. And when I listen, whatever I need to know is revealed to me. And I realized that I was carrying a charge from the West Coast. I spent more than a week in the Emperor Dragon that comes out at Jade Cove. Then I made two visits to the node in Monterey, and I dowsed it. I dowsed both of those. And when you douse something, you're harmonizing with it. You're in resonance with it. You're vibrating at the same frequency. And then just before I left, the day before I left, a week ago, Friday, a week ago today, my sister and I went to the node on Strawberry Hill in Golden Gate Park. This is one of the most powerful nodes on the West Coast. It's made by two of the most powerful solar-generated subtle energy lines that there are, and these two lines cross right at the top of Strawberry Hill, which is on an island in the middle of Golden Gate Park, and there's a waterfall there. Crazy. And we went there and we meditated. And meditation is another way of harmonizing with the subtle energy field of the planet. And so I had picked up a charge through all these interactions with that. And here I was at this, obviously, Nobska Point is got to be another major nodal point. I haven't dowsed it at all. But it's obviously very powerful. All the people that look to that and have looked to that point for guidance over the centuries, that's a lot of psychic energy. So anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm feeling this vibration in it. And what came to me when I was given to understand is that I was delivering that charge to that node. And there was like a transference of energy between what I was carrying and what was naturally there, and so there was this opening that was provided, and I was, a conduit for that to happen, and I realized that that's what the bards did, they wandered around through the subtle energy field with an understanding of its layout and its relation to what was happening with the planet with regards to the astrology, and energetically what the field was doing, and they would make music and receive guidance. Music, what is music? Music. We understand that it comes through the muses. It's information that comes through the dimensional planes, right? And musical vibration is and songs and words are in that way they can be perceived as a code, and each letter is an algorithm, and each sentence is a spell, connected to an intention. And that when you, consciously accept a role as a person that connects those dots around the countryside, that there are certain things that become possible and open to you, like feeling a sense of harmony with the earth, feeling connection, exercising a literal physical, emotional, and spiritual connection with the subtle energy field of the earth. And I'm one of the first people that have consciously been able to do that. since these latest modifications in the subtle energy field of the planet, since the introduction of these six of the most powerful subtle energy lines on the planet. And I'm aware of their layout on the planet. There are but a handful of people that are aware of this now. And even fewer of those that have actually been to any of these nodes, the new nodes that have been created by the appearance of these three new Emperor Dragon lines, subtle energy lines. But we have been entering a new stage in the development of consciousness on the planet, science is talking about how the solar system is moving through this magnetic sheet. That's what they call it. These waves of physical energy that have been emanating from the center of the Milky Way. As any galaxy radiates radiates radiation, and it creates these waves and of a full spectrum of radiation, and the solar system and everything within the galaxy experiences these waves in a certain pattern, in a unique pattern. Every place in the galaxy experiences the wave fronts, the constant stream of energy coming from the center of the Milky Way galaxy differently, uniquely. And in some ways predictable, in some ways not. And we have obviously been we're in a dynamic phase of our movement through that sheet and that series of waves of energy that come from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And one of the results is the world as we know it today, the world as it's unfolding for us today. COVID and Trump and the Chinese and the internet and Jeff Bezos and all of it. It's all, this is what it looks like. And it's all just on its way. It's all just water flowing down the river. None of it's going to stay. There will be a river until there's not. And right now we're in it. And so what we're going to see moving forward is an acceleration. Things are not going to calm down. Things are only going to speed up for the next 10,500 years in a good way. The expansion of consciousness, the expansion of human potential, fulfillment of human potential. That's what we're about. That's what we're here for. And that's what we get. So that's what I signed up for, and so did you, whether you're aware of it or not. Nobody's here by mistake, everybody's here by agreement. Yep. All right, I think it's time. Is that Ellen Stern? Hi, Ellen Stern. I can't actually see the screen very well, so if I'm not responding to any of these wave opportunities, waving people. Let's It's because I can't. The sun is right here, and I have a dirty screen, so I can't really see very well what it is that people are putting up in there. So, let's take another look at where we are. The vineyard, and there's the ferry. It looks like it's coming from. Vineyard Haven. And where is that? There's the ferry going to the vineyard. And just in case you didn't know, never been around these parts, out there, that's the tip of, that's Oak Bluffs over there. So that little Oak Bluffs is over there. And then to the left of that is Nantucket, out there, out on the horizon. Yep. But look at this. Isn't this beautiful? Where I'm from. This is my hometown. Well, this thingy's telling me that my battery is about toast, so I should probably call it a day. Clipped, trimmed my beard. Gonna go, let's see. Gonna go run in the woods. This is where we have the Heavenly Choir step in and give us a song. Right? Glorious! Glorious! Alright. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned if you care. I've got lots more to share. Oh, I am so glad got back here. I just wanted to share with you this guy. I know this looks like a normal watermelon. I found this watermelon in my bed yesterday. And this, for the second time in my life, I've managed to lose a watermelon in my bed. In my defense, It is a big bed. With many moving parts. I really have enjoyed the company of my, I wouldn't call it a pet watermelon, but it says something that, you know, there aren't that many people on the planet that can say they lost a watermelon in their bed. Not once, but twice. Just saying. It takes a certain talent and focus of energy to this could be you, but it's not today. Just saying. Alrighty. Well, there's a point on the path. Quote a famous book, a would-be famous book. There's a point on the path when your nasal hairs turn white, and they sometimes get in the way of your mustache hairs, and they get tangled up, and then you get all this sensation down in here that you wouldn't normally have to deal with. And then, you know, it looks to people like you have boogers hanging out your nose, but it's really just your hair. And what are you going to do? Because if you pull it out or you cut it, it's just going to grow back stronger. Next thing you know, you've got this and on mundanity. And I'm very, you know, I recognize the blessing of being able to discuss the mundane at length and in depth. I realize it's a luxury and a blessing, but I will tarry no more. Thanks for watching. This is an eye exercise that I have been practicing for a couple of years. And I'll get you going. Here's to everybody. Everybody. And remember, we